Autumn can be a great time for fishing in Cornwall, with an amalgamation of several species of fish that overlap on their various migratory paths. Most times when I go out on the kayak, I have one target species in mind and gear up for that species. However, at this time of the year, with so many different species available, I occasionally have a multi-species trip. I set up 4 rods, 2 for bait fishing and 2 for lure fishing, and this is one of those trips. The possible species I could catch are mackerel, herring, scad, dogfish, bullhuss, whiting, cod, gurnard, squid and bass. I'm out here fishing at anchor, but before we get into the fishing, let's have a look at the tackle I'm using. Tackle I've got with me today for this multi-species fishing, I've got 4 rods set up. 2 rods are going to be fished with bait on the bottom, and on those 2 they're set up the same. They're set up with running ledgers, but instead of just the 1 hook at the end, I've got a 2 down rig. So that's 1 hook at the end and 1 hook coming off the main snood. So it's a multi-hook rig. And the hooks I'm using are only small, they're only size 1/0 because I'm going to be fishing small baits, either strips of squid or fresh mackerel if I can get it. And I've also got some frozen black lug with me. And with the smaller hook, I've got more chance of catching multi-species rather than one big large bait. So that's those 2 rods, and now I've got the other 2 rods are set up with lures. I've got a squid rig set up, a couple of squid jigs coming off paternoster style, and I'm going to lower that down when I'm at anchor, lower that down, just raise it a few feet off the bottom, pop it in the rod holder and just leave it and let the swell of the kayak jig that for me. So that's in case there's any squid around. And then lastly, I've got some feathers set up. These are mini feathers, a herring rig, tiny little feathers on size 6 hooks, and on that I would hope to catch, of course, herring or mackerel or scad or even gurnard down on the bottom. And down the end, instead of a weight, as usual, those of you who have seen my previous videos, when I fish this rig, I usually fish with a speed jig instead of a weight, mainly because this will catch fish and the lead weight won't catch anything. And very often I've picked up some good mackerel on this, gurnard, John Dory. You never really know what you might catch, so it's a good idea rather than fishing a lead weight. So those are the rigs, and hopefully with a combination of the 4 fishing, we should get a good mixed bag of fish. While waiting for a bite on the bait rods, I was monitoring the fish finder for any passing shoals, and as you can just about see there, a shoal started appearing just off the bottom. So I lowered the herring rig down and jigged the rig amongst them, and they turned out to be scad. And there's been a lot of scad around recently, and scad are very popular down on the Mediterranean as an eating fish, but in this country they're generally considered just pot bait. But I actually enjoy eating them. But at least it was good to get the first fish on the board and the first species caught of the day. The next fish came to the bait rod, and this was clearly something much bigger than a scad. And it turned out to be a codlin. Now Cornwall is not really known as an abundant inshore cod fishery like other parts of the country, such as the east coast and the southeast coast. However, we do have some good years, and this year 2014 is turning out to be one of those years. And I started catching codlin unexpectedly back in the summer, the height of the summer. And there's been a lot of codlin around, and it makes a pleasant change from catching that other member of the cod family that Cornwall are known for, and that's pollock. So catching cod to me is a very pleasant change. So that's 2 species already. So I've got the other bait rod out there. I've got the squid jigs there, just jigging about 10 feet off the bottom, and then I'm monitoring the fish finder as I sit here waiting for bites for any passing shoals of herring, mackerel or that scad that I caught earlier. So really pleasing to get this codlin, nice little codlin, very nice fat codlin. So that's great. So that's 2 species, and we'll get back down and see if we can catch some more. Baiting up of these 2 down rigs. On the end hook I've got 1 black lug and a small strip of squid, and on the other, the dropper, just a small piece of squid, a strip of squid. Like I said, because I'm multi-species fishing, I mean, if I was just targeting bull huss or thornback rays or cod, if I'd known there's cod down there, then I'd probably fish much bigger baits. But by fishing, a bit like match fishing really, fishing small baits like this, I've got more chance of maybe picking up a Gurnard or maybe even a flatfish down on the bottom. I've got a bite on the rod there. Whoops! Yep, I better get and deal with that. Yep. Into something. I've got to be a little bit careful here. If this is a fairly decent, it's taking line, fairly decent fish. For example, if it's a codlin, because I'm only using the small little 1/0 hooks, the bait holder hooks, and they're only really Aberdeens, so they're not really designed for big fish, big hard fighting fish. So I've got the drag set quite loose here, because what I don't want to do, I don't want to bend the hook out, which can happen, and has happened to me in the past when I'm fishing just small hooks like this, and then suddenly you get a take from something decent, bigger than you expected, or a fish you don't expect, and then if you're a bit hard on them, I've had the hooks bend out. Yeah, it's but although I've got the drag set quite loose to try and avoid that when the fish takes. It is taking line, and it's a bit of a headbanger. So maybe this is another cod or codlin. It's the right time of year for them, November. End of November. No, so it's the right time of year for them. I'm anchored here. Just talk about positioning the anchor, and I'm anchored here just where a bank starts rising. There's a gully, a deep gully, a deep pool, and I'm anchored just as it starts rising up the bank. And the theory being that fish swimming along the pool may hug the edge of the bank. That's the theory. The fish is up. I'm on the leader now, but it's got a big. Yeah, it's a nice cod. Well, it's a codlin, but it's a nice, decent, nice fat one. Yeah, nice codlin. I thought it might be by the head banging that you get with cod. Nice codlin there. And interesting, this was caught, like I said, I've got the 2 down rig, so I'm mixing up the baits a bit. And this one was actually caught on a small calamari squid head, and that's all, on the 1/0 hook. It just goes to show you don't always have to put massive, great, large pieces of bait on to catch fish. You still catch cod. Usually if you go cod fishing and put a huge great bait on, I'd probably put some lugworm on and a whole squid. Okay, I know, I mean, this is only a codlin, it's not a cod, but even so, it's really pleasing when you're just fishing small baits to still pick up things like cod. I mentioned earlier that while I'm waiting for a bite, I can monitor the fish finder for any passing shoals of fish that I can take advantage of. But my fish finder doesn't only show fish that are swimming actually in the water column, suspended in the water column. It also shows fish that are actually swimming on the bottom. And they're usually shoal fish such as, it could be whiting, it could be, as it's proven today, codlin, or it could be Gurnard. It could be any fish, shoal fish that are swimming on or close to the bottom. And when I use my fish finder, I always have it set on dual frequency. It's a dual beam fish finder, and it will show at 77 kilohertz and 200 kilohertz. And I like to have them both on the screen at the same time, which is known as split frequency. And the reason for that is one side or the other sometimes gives me more detail. And if you notice there on the left side of the screen, that's the 77 kilohertz side. And about 10 feet off the bottom, you can see that bit of interference there, like a couple of jaggly lines. That is actually my squid jigs, which I've got lowered about 10 feet off the bottom and just put the rod in the rod holder, and it's jigging itself in with the up and down movement of the kayak. But just below that, and you can see this on both screens, both the 200 kilohertz and the 77 kilohertz, you've got that little bit of change in the bottom there, just rising up off the bottom. Now that shows a fish. Now of course, I don't know what fish they are until I catch them. But often if I'm bait fishing, I'll see a shoal like that pass through, and it's followed by a bite on the rod tip. Now sometimes, of course, if there's a lot of weed about, it could be just weed moving along the bottom, and you never really know until you actually catch the fish. And of course you never really know what fish they are. But in this case, that is shoals of fish. So it's really, really interesting to sit back and actually be able to watch a fish finder, and it's quite entertaining rather than fishing blind to actually see what's going on down there. And when you use these fish finders, after a while you do get to learn what it is, whether it is fish or weed, and it's great fun. Well, I've had a take on the squid jigs that I got out, which I've got, let's say, about 10-15 feet off the bottom. Just going to ease this squid up. And there it is. So that's species number 3. Just the right size, actually. I find the smaller squid, we get 2 types here. We get the smaller, more native squid, and then we get the larger squid that can grow quite large. But these small ones are much more tender. The larger ones tend to have to be cooked slowly over a long period of time. But these are absolutely delicious. So that's great. So that's species number 3, and hopefully bound to pick up a dogfish at some point during the day. Other possibilities, like I said in the introduction there, other possibilities are bull huss. There's an outside chance of a bass. I have caught them at anchor here out in the deep water. I'm fishing 90 odd foot of water here, and that'll probably go to over 100 feet. Get the occasional one, but most of the bass are caught in the shallows. And hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 mackerel or herring pass by. I'm into my 3rd codlin of the day here, and this turned out to be a nice codlin. And like I said earlier, I'm only using light hooks here, light small hooks, and I have to take my time with them, and it takes me quite a while to get them up in the over 100 foot of water. So I've cut out a lot of the playing of this fish and moved the video forward a bit. Another nice codlin there. Lovely fat codlin. That one was caught on the squid and black lug combination. Well, I hope that the pilot leading that great ship coming through here, navigating its way through the channel here, sees me. Otherwise I'm going to have to get off this anchor pretty quickly. But I'm anchored just off the main channel, just off the edge. So what we should do, we should see that pilot, and that will start is following the channel, navigating the ship through the channel. It's following the channel at the moment, and we should see it swing straighten up in a minute and pass by fairly well clear of me, I hope. But I'm certainly going to get some swell from it when it does pass by. Usually where I'm anchored here, apart from in the summer season, this time of year it's usually pretty quiet. It's away. And while I'm chatting away there, I just saw some fish down on the bottom of the fish finder, chatting away about that ship. So while I'm talking, I've lowered my herring rig down and I've got something. So hopefully we've got another species. Yeah, there's a nice shoal of something showing down there. I mean, it could be another scad. There's a lot of scad around at the moment. We'll see. Hopefully, maybe it's a... Yeah, it's scad. Get these in. Couple of scad there. Unfortunately, that pilot boat is swinging round now. I'll leave the camera on so you can watch that ship pass by. And it's chaos at the moment. That's the only thing when you're multi-species fishing and you've got so many rods out. I've got a bite now. I've got a bite on the other rod, one of the bait rods. But to be honest, I'm more concerned that this ship is going to stay well away from me. Fantastic sight though. Yeah, summer flower, that's been moored way up the river, up by the ferry crossing there, further upriver, just beyond that, and there's a pair of them up there. They've been up there for a fair few months. I've got no idea why, whether it's repairs or what, or just laying up. And that's some sight, isn't it? And yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it isn't that far away from me, but it's far enough. And I've got to deal with this bite now on this other rod. Well, no, whatever it was, it's not hooked. Yeah, that's some sight passing you by. Well, I've got to brace myself now. Actually, it's not too bad. The swell's no problem, there's hardly any swell at all. They've gone past nice and slow. Looks like they're taking it into Falmouth. There's another fish coming in, and I'm rather hoping this is whiting to add to the species. Once again, I can see just little shoals of fish moving. They're very on the bottom, but I can pick them up on the fish finder. I'm going to be making, in fact I'm in the process today of also making a video about reading a fish finder that some of you might find useful. I certainly find it an asset, particularly when lure fishing, when you can actually see the lures going down and lower, make sure you're jigging or working the lure amongst the fish. But also when you're bottom fishing, it's quite actually what we got here. We've got oh, this is great, because this adds to the species. Because what I've got here, I've got a small bull huss, which for those of you that don't know is a member of the Dogfish family. You've got lesser spotted dogfish and greater spotted dogfish, and this is it's only small. When they can grow quite large. Yeah, if you notice the spots there, how they look quite large spots, and we're quite a bit darker, whereas the dogfish are much smaller spots, hence the name. The bull huss is called a greater spotted dogfish, and the dogfish is called a lesser spotted dogfish. So this is only a tiny little bull huss, and they can grow 5 foot long, and member of the shark family, as most people know. And yeah, so that's another species. But this one's going to go back. Put this one back. Hopefully it will go back okay. Well, this is interesting. I've got a double here. Well, it certainly adds to the species list. It looks like we've got a dogfish, which I thought they would turn up at some point, but also I've got a Gurnard, a lovely red Gurnard, which is great. Getting them in. So we got a double to add to the species list. Small little dogfish there, lesser spotted dogfish, which is going to be returned. I mean, occasionally I do eat dogfish, and I don't find them a problem skinning, and I enjoy eating them. But bigger than this. But I don't need this. This is too small, and I've got a few dogfish in the freezer already, so this one's going to go back. And then the lovely red Gurnard there, which is pleasing, and they're to me these are absolutely delicious to eat. So we get the species list is growing now, and it's a really useful way of fishing. If you've never tried it before, fishing this way is to scale down with the size of the hook and the size of your baits, fish multi-hook rigs, and combine lure fishing, bait fishing with lure fishing. And it's surprising the different species you can pick up, particularly this time of year. In the autumn, I mean, it's late November now, so we're getting into early winter. You see, you get quite an amalgamation of different species, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to have a mixed bag instead of just one type of fish. Particularly if you like eating fish, like I do. For those of you that are interested in kayak fishing setups, and which this setup enables me to fish several rods at once. What I've got the Scotty rod holder on the left side of the kayak there, and forward of me, but obviously within reach from my seat. Then another Scotty rod holder opposite that one. That one's called a Scotty Orca, and that one I believe is called a rocket launcher. It just works out. It works out well to have the two different Scotty rod holders in that position, and then the butts of the rod are not touching each other or overlapping each other, and it works well for me. So both of those are forward of my seat, but like I said, within easy reach from my seat. Then just to the side of me, I've got a ram tube rod holder mounted on a 1.5 inch ram ball. So that's just to the side of me. And then I've got to the other side, it's another 1.5 inch ram ball, which I could fit another rod holder to the side of me. But when I'm filming, I use that for my camera mount, which is quite handy to the side. And I can swivel it around, point it to the other side of the kayak if I want to. So although this type of fishing several rods at once can get a bit busy at times, and you can get a bit of line tangling, but it is productive. The lure rod, of course, I just keep by in case I see any shoals of fish pass by. The jigging rod with the herring rig, just keep that by, ready to lower it down if I see any shoals of mackerel or herring pass by on the fish finder. Okay, so that's the setup. Kayakers of course do it in many different ways, but the point is, it's very, very handy to have several rod holders on your kayak in different positions. It can be very, very, very useful. One tip I can give is to keep your baits fresh. I usually check the baits every 20 minutes, and even if I catch a fish within that time, before lowering it down again, always replace the bait with fresh bait. I remember in the days when I used to go out on charter fishing boats, when I was a member of a sea fishing club, and you get 8 people on board, and there's usually one person or a couple of people who seem to catch a lot more than others. And what I found was the people that are catching regularly they're catching, getting the fish in, changing their baits and lowering it back down again. So they're regularly changing baits, and the people that are not catching are leaving their rods at the side of the boat in the rod holders and leaving it, and of course they're not catching and not changing their bait. So it's always pays, whether you're shore fishing off the beaches or off the rocks or out on the kayak boats, is even though you can get lazy and you think you're sitting back in the sun, and you, like I've got 2 bait rods out with two hooks on each rig, and having to constantly cut up fresh bait and keep changing them. It can be a bit of a chore, and sometimes you think, oh, I just can't be bothered. But it definitely pays. Definitely pays to keep your baits nice and fresh. Keep that scent trail going in the water. Can make the difference between catching or not catching. Now I think I'm into another codling here. I've got a slight problem here. I've got both rods going at the moment. Bite on the other rod. Just gonna have to deal with one at a time. Feels like a cod. They're moving through. I can see them down on the bottom of the fish finder. It's dead. There's absolutely nothing showing, and then you just see a few patches showing down the bottom. And then that can be followed by a bite on the rod tip. Yeah, got the other rod going as well. Tapping away. Like I said, I can't rush this. If it is, I can't rush it up because of those light hooks I'm using. Unfortunately, this fish has picked up the line of the other rod, which is a bit of a problem when you're fishing so many rods at once. But yeah, it's another codling. I've been hoping 1 or 2 whiting would show up, and at last they have. Nice whiting there. So it's another species. So that's fantastic. Those of you that maybe have seen my previous video, estuary fishing for whiting, will know that I mentioned you get some decent whiting here at this time of year. So that's great to get whiting and the cod as well. The cod seemed to have disappeared. That's gone quiet, but that's fine if it's replaced by a few of these. And once again, I noticed just small changes on the bottom of the fish finder, and know that that's a few shoals of fish moving through. Of course, you don't know exactly what they are, but until you actually catch one. But on this occasion, it turned out to be whiting. Another whiting there. So it looks like the cod have disappeared, and the whiting have been replaced by the whiting. At certain times of the year, multi-species fishing with several rods set up to take advantage of different available fish is great fun. And although it can be busy and hard work, it can also be highly productive. The 7 different species caught on this trip was very pleasing, and in particular catching a few cod. Once again, I hope you found that useful, and many thanks for watching.